Hey, welcome back. We're going to be building a aluminum bronze wear item. It's got a couple different features on here that are a little bit tricky to maneuver through, but once you see them, it becomes a little bit easier. We've got a 2-inch radius along the top of it. We've got a 1-inch radius along this side, but if you notice this angle over here, or this edge over here, is not exactly vertical. So those are where the little tricky parts come in. Size-wise, it's a relatively small part, so we're going to take a look at what we have here. At the end of this, we're going to make sure that we get our datum features on here as well. A little bit of tolerancing that we're going to add to it. You're going to need to correct your title block at the end of this, but I have some dimensions that are visible for the internet to where they're a little bit easier to see. So we're going to start out with just a simple sketch on our front plane. We're going to get this basic general shape here, and then we'll come back and add these features, and then we'll be ready to create our drawing. So let's go ahead and get started. Another thing that I'd like to do is I'd like to create a sketch in here so we can create this auxiliary view. There's not really any way that I can show this radius in its true form without creating that auxiliary view, or I'd have to create some sort of note. I want to stay away from notes if I can. Alright, so let's go ahead and get started. So we want a new part. Select new part. We want to make sure that we are in inches, and I come down to the bottom right hand side and I am in inches. I'm going to go ahead and adjust my materials, so I'm going to edit the material. That's a right click command, edit material. I know it's going to be, I think it's going to be in the aluminum alloys. So aluminum, may not, it may be in the copper alloys. So copper alloys, aluminum bronze is the very first one. I'm going to apply that initially so we have that ready to roll, and we want to create a features extruded boss face. I'm going to select the front plane. It rotates normal to me. I'm going to draw a corner rectangle just in this general area here. Now I want to add some relations, so I'm going to use my escape command a couple times. Come up, select add relations. I'm going to pick this bottom line. I'm going to pick the UCS or the coordinate systems, and I'm going to use the midpoint command. Now, one other thing that I'd like to do is I'd actually like to delete a relation. So these are all the relations that we have here, but the only one I'm concerned about is this line over here. Shows that I have a vertical relation, so I'm going to delete that. Now let's go ahead and add a dimension on that particular line and make sure that it is functional. So I want to make that 95 degrees because it was 85 from here to here along that horizontal line. So the next thing I want is this bottom line, and I believe it was 1. And our overall height was also 1. So let's go verify that. So we are 1 in the height, 1 on the length of the bottom. I don't know what this dimension here is, and we know that our thickness is going to be 3/8 of an inch, or 0.375. So with that being said, we're fully defined. Our sketch is turned completely black. I look down at the bottom right, it is fully defined. So when I exit the sketch, if I had selected features before, it should automatically be in the features command. I really like making this as mid-plane because I want to use the planes that the computer is giving me, or the program is giving me, for reference. We know that the thickness is going to be 0.375. Now I want to go ahead and accept it. Alright, so the next thing I want to do is I want to cut this radius along the top. I think it said it was a 2-inch radius. We come down and we verify it. And sure enough, it is a 2-inch radius, and this is going to be the profile that we have that we're going to cut. I'm not going to use just a single line with this. I'm going to use a closed profile. It just makes it a little bit easier. So this is why I wanted to make sure that I selected the planes and kept things centered up. So I'm going to select a revolved cut. It's going to ask what plane. I'm going to expand this back out, and I'm going to select the right plane. So now I'm in the very center of my part. I come over here and I select a regular line. I'm going to come up here, over, on the edge, out, up, over, down, and over. So let's give this thing some dimensions. I want to make sure that from here to here we always have a little bit. So I'm going to say that's going to be 0.1. Let's make this line 0.06. And now I want to add another relation. So let's add a relation. So this line, I would like for them to be equal. Also, let's make them collinear while we're here. Okay, so I'm going to make this line and this line equal as well. And now I need an angle from here to here. Our dimension showed that it was 30 degrees. And we also need a dimension of this small little flat up on the top, which was 0.015. So with those relations, we have all of this portion of our sketch fully defined, and I'm down here. Now I have to create an axis to revolve this from. So what I want to do is I'm just going to pick a center line, and I'm going to start here, but this is a vertical axis, really not what I'm too concerned about, and then I'm going to draw this horizontal axis. So I want to add a relation between these two. So I have this line already selected because I didn't hit the escape command, but I want to pick this line as well. Let's just make those equal. Now, the distance of this was a 2-inch radius. So I want to pick from this little horizontal line of our sketch to this line. I want to make it 2. And now we should be completely and fully defined. So if I pick this little axis here, and then I exit my sketch, it's still going to ask me what axis of revolution. I want to revolve it around that. I come up here, and this is what's going to be removed, so I want to go ahead and accept that command. So we now have this little rooftop up here on the top of this. So it's a 2-inch radius around here. It's always centered up in the part because we use the midpoint command on this particular feature here. And now the next thing that we're going to want to do is we have to put a radius on this edge here. There's a couple different ways to do it, but I want to show you how to use a plane to create a I want a plane here and here. I want it to be perpendicular. So that is what I want there. I'm going to go ahead and accept that. And now I want to create a sketch on that plane, or a cut on that plane. So let's create an extruded cut. I want to use a 3-point arc command. I'm just going to pick from this edge to this edge and place a line there. I'm going to accept that. Now I want to start adding relations. So my arc is selected. I want to pick this upper edge. I want to make it tangent. Now the next thing I want to do is I want to make sure that this is all centered up. So I pick these 2 points here. Let's make those 2 horizontal from one another. And now we need a dimension on this. So we select a smart dimension. Pick that. And it was a 1-inch radius. And that's our 1-inch radius. And now with that being said, we can come up and create an extruded cut. We want to make sure that we go through all. Our arrow is pointing this way, so it's going to remove that. So we want to go ahead and accept that. I'm going to use the Control-7 command and take a look at this, and I like the way that that looks, so we can kind of keep moving forward. Now, when we get ready to create our drawing, we have this auxiliary view up here that's a little bit difficult to do unless you create some reference geometry inside of the model itself. So we're going to go do that now, and we're going to show that in our drawing, and then we're going to hide it a little bit later. So on the front plane, let's create a sketch. We just want a reference sketch. I'm going to come up and select a center line. I'm going to come tickle along this edge until I get the midpoint and just pull a line out. I don't really care where it is, but I want to add a relation. So I have my line selected. I want to come pick this right side edge, and I want to make it perpendicular. That way we're always looking down that face when we create our auxiliary view. So go ahead and accept it. Not too concerned about the length of it. So we want to exit this sketch, and we want to make sure that we save this, and I'm going to call it junk. You need to call it whatever your assignment is. Alright, so with that being said, let's go ahead and create a drawing. So file, make a drawing from part. I'm going to turn my title block off where we can have a little bit more room. So I'm going to come down, go to properties, and I don't want to display my sheet format. Alright, so now I'm going to come up and open up my view palette. I'm going to drag my front view here. I'm going to drag my right side view over here. And now that auxiliary view, if I pull this straight up, it's going to create problems when I try to place a dimension out here. So let's go ahead and select this dimension, pull it out, and it says that it can't really convert that into a line or a circular arc because we've got these 2 compound radiuses out here. It just wreaks a little bit of havoc. So I'm going to delete that view. Alright, so what I want to do, come back to view layout. I'm going to pick this little line that we created in our sketch. I'm going to create an auxiliary view, pull it up, place it down, verify that my view label is the correct view label, and then accept it. So now when I get ready to create a dimension on here, it does show up as what it's supposed to be. So now we're ready to come back in and start adding some of our other dimensions. I believe that was 2, this bottom was 1. We had an angle dimension out here of 85 degrees. Notice the number of decimal places is really off on this. So let's come up here to options. So let's go ahead and fix all that. So document properties, units, inch pounds, I want to be in 3 decimal places, and I also want the angle to be none. And it should fix the properties of all of this. So it updates all of that. Also the thickness of this, we want it to be here. I think there's an overall height on this side. Of 1. There was a small flat up here on the top of this. 15, and I think it was 30 degrees from the side here. So pull that out, place it down. So now we have a lot of the dimensions that we need. I think I'm missing one somewhere. Let's go take a look at our drawing and see. I think we're pretty close to where we need to be. We're going to come back in, and you're going to have some other items that you're going to need to do. Now, one thing that we haven't looked at before are going to be these datum feature plane, or datum features, or references. So come back in here to our drawing. We're going to come up and select a datum feature. I want to pick this edge for A. I think that's what it was. And then I want this to be B. So I'll pull it out here. You can drag these around. Oh, I didn't want the C to be there. So C is where we want on this side here, and we place it down along these areas. So now you can, once you get them placed, you can drag them around wherever you need to just to clean things up. The other things is you're going to need to create your tolerances in here, but I don't like this line showing. So what I want to do is I want to open up my part. I want to come into the part, and then I want to hide that sketch. Now when I hide it and I go back to my drawing, it's still showing up, okay? So what I need to do is I need to come over to this view box, in this little orange box. I want to right click, and I want to reset the sketch visibility. So what that does is it hides that sketch, even though this is still referenced. So if we changed this degree from 85 to say 87 or whatever it was that we wanted it to be along with, that reference sketch is always going to follow it, so this auxiliary view will follow it as well. If we just did the auxiliary view inside of our drawing here, we'd have to go back and reassociate that each time, but that's not what I want to do. And that is going to be today's lesson, so make sure that you correct all of your tolerances, make sure that your title block is updated, and you can submit that in your learning management system.